Good afternoon. I wasn't sure whether it was afternoon or evening. It's just coming, it's evening. Gosh, it's nearly 20 to 7. I wanted to have a look at an article that was very kindly sent to me by Catherine. Thank you again, Catherine. From the Nursing Times magazine. I don't remember reading this one last year. There's a lot of information here that did come up in other articles, but this one is very interestingly structured, and certain things I don't think were in some of the other articles. So it's from the Nursing Times magazine, and it's written by someone called Ed Church, and it was published on the 22nd of August 2023, so while the trial was ongoing. The title says, Senior Nurse Who Refused to Suspend Lucy Letby Claims She Lacked Evidence. And they're talking about Karen Rees, who was a big supporter of Lucy Letby during all the period leading up to her, Lucy Letby, being removed from the unit, and thereafter would meet with her socially, and she gave witness, Karen Rees did, in an interview, to say that Lucy Letby was incredibly distraught, as you might imagine she would be every time she did meet with Karen Rees over the intervening years leading up to the charge, or year at least, when she was put on these admin duties from July 2016 onwards, all the way through till the first arrest in 2018. So yeah, it was a couple of years, wasn't it? And Karen Rees said in an interview that every time they met, that Lucy Letby was in pieces and was crying and upset all the time. And she also said in the interview, Karen Rees did, well, how could somebody keep that up? How could somebody act that well, as it were? And I think the inference being that you can draw from it is that she wasn't acting. She wasn't acting. Lucy Letby wasn't. She was being systematically destroyed, and she knew it. And she was taken away from her nursing, And that was even before the first arrest. So anyway, I'm going to sort of read little bits of this article from the Nursing Times that Catherine sent me. I'll copy it below. It was sent in the form of a Word file, so I'll copy it below as a pinned note, as a pinned comment, as it were. A retired nurse manager accused of failing to remove child murderer, I'm just reading the article, Lucy Letby, from the neonatal ward she worked at, has claimed she was not given enough information to suspend her. Karen Rees was head of nursing in Countess of Chester Hospital NHS Foundation Trust's Urgent Care Division during the time that Lucy Letby, 33, murdered 7 babies and attempted to murder 6 others. That's what they're reporting. On Monday, former neonatal nurse Lucy Letby was handed... So this is just after the trial, obviously, because there was reporting restrictions. So this was published just after the verdicts, after the convictions. On Monday, former neonatal nurse Letby was handed a whole life sentence for the killings that took place between June 2015 and June 2016. So the convictions have already been handed down. Countess of Chester paediatrician Dr. Stephen Breary had told Manchester Crown Court that he raised the alarm about the nurse in June 2016. I don't know if that's a mistake, and that he'd asked Miss Rees to remove Lucy Letby from the ward. I thought they were allegedly raising alarms a lot before that, weren't they? They say they were. So, and in any case, Lucy Letby was removed from the unit in July 2016. I'm not sure whether do they mean 2015 in this? What was the actual date of that meeting with Karen Rees? Dr. Breary told the court his plea was rejected by Ms. Rees, despite other consultants backing the idea out of concern of an association, in quotes, between Lucy Letby's presence and the collapse of several infants who went on to die. What about all the ones where there are collapses and deaths that obviously they couldn't attribute to Lucy Letby in any way, as we keep saying, and they make up the majority of the deaths and collapses. Be that as it may, it goes on to say, the paediatrician, i.e. Breary, said that Ms. Rees was, quote, familiar with the concerns of medical staff about Lucy Letby and had said, quote, no to suspending Lucy Letby until a full investigation was carried out because there was no evidence. Because they're not giving Karen Rees any evidence. They're not giving anybody any evidence. They haven't got any evidence. It's only when they get the fraud Evans in on the line and he trumps up and makes up all the evidence that they've got anything. They've got nothing. There never was anything. And there isn't anything. And there never will be any evidence. However, in a statement to Sky News after Lucy Letby's conviction on Friday the 18th of August, God, I'd forgotten the date of it, Ms. Rees, Karen Rees, contested Dr. Breary's version of events. She said Karen Townsend, the director of urgent care at the hospital, and Ravi Jayaram, a consultant who was the clinical lead for neonates and paediatrics, told her during a general review meeting that there were concerns about Lucy Letby's clinical practices. So that's not saying anything about suggesting deliberate harm, is there? And it's not even saying what those concerns were. Like somebody's made a specific mistake. And we know the doctors have made an awful lot of mistakes and failures to do certain procedures correctly and do them again and again and again, causing harm to the babies. We know that for sure. But they didn't stipulate any. What were the specifics of these clinical practices that were going wrong that Lucy Letby? What were they? They didn't want to share them because they didn't have anything. Ms. Rees said that she was told at this stage that Dr. Breary thought Lucy Letby should be removed from the neonatal unit. It's not good enough just to say that, though. You've got to come up with something. You've got to have something, haven't you? She said that she, as in Karen Rees, immediately and, quote, urgently sought Dr. Breary and Dr. Jayaram to, quote, obtain more information, but could only initially find the latter, i.e. Dr. Jayaram. She said, quote, I went straight away as it was a Friday afternoon and I was conscious that staff would be going home for the weekend. I wanted to find out what the concerns were, as you would. I've added that, as you would. Ravi wouldn't give me any information to explain why Lucy Letby should be removed from the unit, she said in a statement. I believe her 100%. Now, why wouldn't he? Just a little backtrack here. So not only have they not gone to the child death overview panel about their apparent concerns, that was always open to these consultants. They never did any of it. They're just trying to get somebody moved out of the unit by will and will alone, not telling anybody why, not giving them any evidence, not giving them any justification. And of course, Karen Rees is going to say, well, but why then? No, we just want you to do it. Oh, we've got evidence. Well, what? Where is it? Oh, we're not going to tell you. Not going to tell you. I want to put this in now before I forget it, is that, again, it becomes hugely obvious, I think, that had the consultants got their way, and Karen Rees said, oh, well, we're going to have to let you go, or you have to move somewhere else, or at the earliest opportunity, we would never have heard of this case. Because there's nothing being suggested here that Lucy Letby would have been removed from the ward and then they would have started a proper investigation or asked for inquests, as they should have done for each of those deaths. That's the way it should have been done, as other people have said in the group that I'm in, inquests, or go to the child death overview panel, which would then lead to inquests happening. Coronial inquests, I think they're called, aren't they? But no, Nothing would have happened after that. They just would have got rid of the person they didn't want with them, and giving no evidence for it. And it was only when Lucy was going to be coming back in May 2017 that then they say, well, we're not having that. You've made us apologise to her, and we've got to work with her as well. We're not going to do that. Now we get the police in. This is something, a video I wanted to do about, a kind of on the hoof video about the idea of the purpose that runs through all this, the strain, and the motif that runs through all this is the desire to win at all costs, and it applies to all the agencies and individuals involved. I might try and do that after I've gone through this article. So where were we? Karen Rees, she wanted to find out what the... Ravi wouldn't give her any information. Jayaram, that is. Nothing. That's professional, isn't it? Oh, we just want her to go, but I'm not going to tell you why. He said nothing about air embolus or overfeeding because he didn't know anything about that, because they didn't have any evidence. It's only Evans. Evans has made that up for them later down the line to give them a raison d'etre for it, because he's joined up with them and the police as this trio of bastards and groups of bastards who have just joined in to justify what they've done. They keep on having to justify the bullying more and more and more, and the more the bullying's resisted, the more that Lucy Letby said, well, what have I done then? And I'm going to make a complaint about this. And her dad helps her, dad supports her. And the complaint is upheld as it should be, and was. So every move that Lucy Letby makes to say, well, you're treating me terribly here. There's nothing, I haven't done anything. They've got to top it. They've got to keep topping it until the police come, and that's their trump card as they see it. And then they get this psychopath. I think he's a psychopath, Evans, who'll just do what's necessary. I get really angry talking about this because it's sickening. I see this case is emblematic of so many things going on in the world, and has resonances for me in my own personal life of dealing with organisations that are pathological liars, and just it's like the organisation itself or groups of people within it have all got personality disorders, and they just won't stop lying and trying to win at all costs, even though there's no justice in them doing that. Go back to this thing. He said, this is Karen Rees speaking of Jayaram, he said nothing about air embolus because he didn't know, right? Or overfeeding because he didn't know anything about it because it didn't happen. He did not even mention babies dying and Lucy Letby being present. So what is she supposed to do, Karen Rees? Oh yeah, you don't like her face, do you? Is that what it is? You're not giving us anything else? Just don't like her? Oh, well, she's one of our best nurses with one of the highest levels of training. But we'll just because you're upset with her, we'll tell her to go, shall we? Which unfortunately they did, didn't they? They did. They caved into that and put Lucy Letby on a... This is before the police got involved. They put Lucy Letby out of the ward, again to placate these scumbag consultants. That's what they are. That's what they are, these narcissists. To placate these narcissists. And their narcissistic rage, to placate it. He just asks, this is Karen Rees, he just asked for Lucy Letby to be removed from the NNU, neonatal unit. Second page. She subsequently found the other consultant, that's Breary, Ms. Rees, who retired in March 2018. It's interesting. So March 2018, a few months before Lucy Letby's first arrest, which was in July 2018. She said she told Dr. Breary that she needed more information in order to remove Lucy Letby from the neonatal unit. She claims the consultant, just like Jayaram, quote, refused to give her any more information, adding, Stephen Breary was measured throughout. I'm not sure what that means, measured. I said that if... Well, I'm not sure what that means, measured. He's not giving her any information, but he's being measured. Well, what is he measuring? I don't know what that means. I said that if there were issues, that's Karen Rees saying that, if there were issues, then I needed to know what they were. Despite that, he refused to give me any more information. Bit of too much sunlight coming through there, isn't there? He refused to give me any more information. He said that he had evidence, but he refused to show it to me, said Mrs. Rees, Ms. Rees, Karen Rees. So he's got evidence, has he? Did he though? Did he have evidence? What was that evidence? Just the fact that Lucy was on duty for some of the deaths, and for quite a lot of them she wasn't, or most of them she probably wasn't, or most of the ones that he wasn't suspicious about she wasn't, or was, and they weren't suspicious about them. As we were saying, we're looking at 19 deaths over those 2 years in total. I mean, there are 2 more deaths that come. There's one in July 2016 and one in August 2016, which obviously have nothing to do with Lucy Letby, because she's been moved in July, and obviously in August she's not there at all either. So we've got 19, and yet Lucy Letby's been charged with 7, so we've got at least, I know people say 17, but I'm going with 19 until someone can explain why the August 2015 death and the October 2015 death isn't showing up in the FOI request. But there is a figure there for stillbirths. So I'm going with 19. So that's 7 out of 19. What about the other 12? Where were we? He refused to show it to me. At no point did he say, i.e. Breary, that he suspected she'd been purposely harming babies. So he's not giving her anything like that. And had he done that, had he suspected that, he should have contacted the police way back and gone to this child death overview panel that Dr. McConville keeps talking about, that he had a duty to do that, and then ask for inquests to happen. They've done nothing right. These consultants. Nothing, because, and here's the obvious thing to me, they never really wanted it investigated. They just wanted Lucy Letby gone. Had she have gone of her own accord or been made to go, they would have dropped it like a hot potato, never would have got to the police. It's the fact that Lucy Letby made a complaint, took a grievance out against them. They were forced to apologise, and then she was coming back to the unit, and they couldn't stand that idea. And just to mention this as a case as an aspect of it, as I've said this in many earlier videos, is if you're a serial killer and you're beginning to think people are suspecting that you're a serial killer or that you're deliberately harming and killing babies, are you going to want to stay in that environment, or are you going to think, well, maybe there's nurses wanted all over the country, aren't there? I can move somewhere else. I would just say they don't like me here, I'll move somewhere else and carry on my killing campaign. Why wouldn't I do that? No, but Lucy Letby doesn't do that, because she isn't a murderer. She stays there and takes out a grievance against them, getting more and more focus put upon her. Is that not counterintuitive to what a criminal would do? As Evans says in his stupid way, he says, "Oh, Lucy, she's a very clever criminal." She's a very clever criminal, one that's getting more and more focus poured onto her by her own actions in standing up for herself and staying there and saying, "I've not done anything wrong. I'm going to go back to my job because I'm a good nurse. I've done nothing wrong." Is that being a clever criminal, is it? These people are twisted, absolutely twisted. They'll twist all honour and all goodness into their own, because they're dark triad characters themselves. They'll twist everything that an honourable and good person like Lucy Letby would do, and with her family supporting her, into something else. Oh, that makes her even more clever. And Hughes saying, "Oh, she's very clinical, it's very clinical." These people are absolute morons, but they're dangerous morons. Dangerous morons. Oh God, I just get... In addition, Ms. Rees said if Dr. Breary had given her this evidence... Sorry, I jumped over a bit there. He refused to show her anything. He's saying he's got evidence. Well, who was he going to show it to and when? Who was he going to show it to and when? Hadn't done it for the last year that they've been gossiping about it. They would never have showed anything to anyone because they haven't got any evidence. They need an Evans, and they need the police. They need those two toxic elements. Those two toxic elements of Evans and the police. That's what they need to again have this will to win above everything else, to top Lucy Letby, to top her complaints and her grievance against them, and the fact that she's coming back to the unit. At no point did he say that he suspected she'd been purposely harming babies. If he had said that there had been 16 deaths and that she was present for all of them, then my actions may well have differed. Well, he certainly couldn't have said that because in all great likelihood she wasn't. I can't say conclusively how many she was present for, or just happened to be on duty for, whether it was her designated baby or not that sadly passed away on a given shift, because we don't know. We haven't got the rotors and we don't know the information about these other babies, which could be 12 or more, could be more than 12, beyond the 7 that Lucy Letby was convicted for murdering, supposedly murdering, Oh, that's better. I'll have to... The sunlight's coming through. It was too dark. So he couldn't say that anyway. And he wouldn't be able to say that anyway. And no one ever did say that. And no one ever could say that. In addition, Miss Rees said that Dr. Breary had given her this evidence. In addition, Miss Rees, Karen Rees, said that if Dr. Breary had given her this evidence, it, quote, may have meant a further death could potentially have been prevented. See, this is why I'm a bit concerned about that. The fact this is meant to be happening in June. Well, what date in June? June 2016? I'm not sure that's correct because there are no deaths after June 2023 that Lucy Letby was purported to have been involved in causing deliberate harm and murder. There isn't anything, so I'm not sure what that means. There's something wrong with that date. She denied, Karen Rees, telling Dr. Breary, this is really crucial as well, it came up in this TV interview bit as well, with Karen Rees and I think a Sky journalist. She denied telling Dr. Breary that she would have been happy to take responsibility if, quote, something happened, close quote, to any of the babies on the unit until the next day, dubbing the allegation outrageous and completely untrue. Well, exactly. He's not saying what's wrong with her clinical practice, i.e. Lucy Letby's. He's not giving her any evidence or even mentioning deliberate harm. And yet Karen Rees is supposed to have said, yeah, well, if something happens to one of the babies, it's I'll take responsibility for it. On what possible basis could you do that? And as Dr. Michael McConville says on We Need to Talk About Lucy Letby, you don't do that. You don't take responsibility for another clinician's work. You can't. You don't and you can't. She wouldn't even be there, Karen Rees, on duty, and so she's taking responsibility for what happens overnight or on another shift. It's ridiculous. The former nurse, the former nurse added she was taking legal advice following Dr. Breary's allegations. God, these people do need to be sued to the moon and back by all the people they've harmed. Breary and Jayaram and all these other... I don't really know where Gibbs and Dr. B fit into this. They seem to be this sort of... They call them the Gang of Four, but they seem to be one of the minor characters in it. Dr. B's more shadowy because I don't know much about her at all, other than it has been supposed that she was a doctor that Lucy felt didn't like her, i.e. didn't like Lucy. Jane Tompkinson, Acting Chief Executive Officer at the Countess of Chester, said it would, quote, not be appropriate to comment further due to the ongoing legal considerations. Yeah, some of that stuff's going to come out in the inquiry, isn't it? Ms. Tompkinson said, quote, following the trial of former neonatal nurse Lucy Letby, the Trust welcomes the announcement of an independent inquiry by the Department of Health and Social Care. Quote, in addition, the Trust will be supporting the ongoing investigation by Cheshire Police. Yeah, because that's Cheshire Police, old Hughes and Co. want to get, and they've been trying to get Evans to go back to 2012. And Evans has said he's doing that, going back to 2012, looking at feeding tubes that have come loose all through Lucy Letby's time at that hospital, but obviously ignoring the ones where she wasn't on duty. It'll be the same MO again. I don't think they'll come up with anything else. It's all part of this. It's part of a kind of a propaganda to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it to make it impossible to. It's gilding the lily is the wrong expression, but it's the idea. It's like overkill, which must give you a clue and a red flag. Well, why do you need to overkill? Because you've got doubts about the whole thing, and more and more people are having doubts about the whole thing, as they should do. An NHS spokesman, England spokesman, said, we welcome the independent inquiry announced by the Department of Health and Social Care. So, yeah, it's just all that stuff. In light of the information that's emerged during the trial of Lucy Letby and the announcement of the independent inquiry, the Northern Care Alliance has suspended Alison Kelly. She was another one of the nurse managers. So all these other people sort of having their careers and their reputations harmed as sort of a byproduct of this, of these ghastly consultants, these narcissists getting their way. So that was reading through that article in the Nursing Times. Thanks again to Catherine for sending it to me. I'll copy and paste it below as a pinned note. That was published on 22nd of August 2023 by someone called Ed Church, wrote that up. I made some other notes here. Yeah, it's just this idea of, I've said that, would a murderer stay where the murder is most suspected? When there's a rumour mill going around, all the gossip going around about you, would you stay there? Would you get out of there and start committing murder somewhere else? That's what serial killers tend to do. They tend to change base or change job or change area. It's just all counterintuitive to what somebody who was a quote-unquote clever criminal would do. She's guaranteeing, bringing a Lucy Letby had a lot of choices. She could have said, they put me on admin leave now. Not admin leave. Put me on the admin duties. I'm going to go. Hundreds of job adverts for nurses with Lucy Letby's training and skill should just go to a different hospital. Anywhere in the country or just not that far away, anywhere. But she had honour and she's been impugned, she's been falsely talked about, and her skills have been, well, this is what I'm saying at this point. As Karen Rees is saying, no one's talking about deliberate harm. No one's explicitly talking about it. I think they're gossiping about it. I think that comes up in the Rachel Aviv article later down the line, where, or the source of that might be somewhere else, where Jayaram is in a lunch queue at the hospital and gossiping about the idea that someone's deliberately harming babies. Awful behaviour. Saying that as gossip, but not going to the child death overview panel, not asking for an inquest. What does that make them? The media's turned them into quote-unquote heroes, hero whistleblowers, when all the time they should have gone to the child death overview panel, as Dr. McConville keeps saying on Peter and Dr. Michael McConville's podcast. Episode 16 out now at the moment. What else did I write here? Yeah. Or just as a side note, it's that Goss character again. Somebody came up with a bit of gossip on Goss via Twitter the other day, and I haven't really looked at that yet. It's to do with a completely separate trial. So Goss is going to be the judge for the retrial of the Baby K case, which is starting next Monday. Yeah, they should have had inquests for all the babies dying, and it shouldn't have gone through the police and this creature Evans. It should have gone through an inquest process, obviously, and we wouldn't be in this terrible mess with an innocent person damned like that, and all this catalogue of errors and a malfunctioning, dysfunctional unit kind of getting away with being dangerous and malfunctioning and dysfunctioning, getting away with being chaotic and dysfunctional for those years, as Alison Timmis herself gave witness to at the time in late 2015. That's what she said to Tony Chambers, the chief executive. It's chaos. There's going to be deaths of children. No one's listening to us. It's not safe. That's what she told him at the time. Another consultant, on obviously not one of this Gang of Four people. She was seeing the reality. She was seeing the threats to the children there. She could see it. So, I don't know, 30 minutes. So, yeah, I've written another note here. Yeah, just in case I forget this while I'm going through the New Yorker article in another video to come. You've got Lucy Letby in June 2015, supposedly committing 3 murders in quick succession in more or less a week, or just under a week. And then, so she's very quote unquote successful at murdering. She's got it down pat. She can do it. She's got the opportunity, so they say, and she can do it 3 in 1 week. But it takes her then 8 months to be able to do it again. When you look at the whole charge sheet, in between they're all attempted murders. It takes her 8 months before she's supposedly successful again. Does that make sense as well? A murderer who starts off being really efficient. I know it's a horrible way to put it, but in terms of, the clever criminal idea, the clever criminal who's very clinical, according to Hughes, very clinical, knows exactly what they're doing, very clever, commits 3 murders almost effortlessly. Each one of them goes to plan and then can't do it for 8 months and keeps on not managing to do it. Keeps on not managing to do it for 8 months. Just a few words about this idea of the need to win. It runs through this like a name through a stick of rock, really, and it starts off obviously with the consultants. They needed to win, and winning for them looked like Lucy being taken off the unit and not coming back. Either pushing Lucy to a position where she gave up and left and got another job, or convincing one of her managers to no longer stand by her and say, it's probably best you leave here, Lucy. The consultants don't want to work with you. They're not telling us why. They're not telling us that there's anything wrong with your clinical practices. They won't give us anything, and they're certainly not saying anything about intended harm. But we need to, we can't upset them all. And if it's a case of upsetting them or letting you go, we're going to have to let you go. But thank goodness someone had honour like Karen Rees and stuck by Lucy Letby and other managers. I suppose until they didn't, which is in July 2016, in which they moved her onto admin duties. That's 9 months before the police are involved. 9 months. There's no question of the police being involved there. And then the grievance process is taken out once Lucy Letby is being taken away from the job she's great at, brilliant at, committed to, and excellent at, So yeah, the will to win, and then the grievance process taken out, which absolutely drives these narcissistic bastards crazy. You get the real narcissistic rage then, that they've had to apologise to Lucy in writing, all four of them. Jairam, Breary, Dr. B and Gibbs. Gibbs is on his way out anyway, he's just about to retire. But anyway, they've all got to do it. Jairam has to be in this mediation meeting with Lucy in which he apologises to her face. She asks him, but will you be happy working with me again? And he says, well, I've got to work with you again. And she goes, well, but will you be happy? And he just won't answer her because of the narcissism. It's narcissism and the mean-spiritedness and the fact that he's lost, you see. Their pride and their arrogance is wounded to hell, these bastards. So they've got to win now, haven't they? They've really got to win now, and that's when they bring in the police. The need to win at all costs. Nothing to do with truth, nothing to do with justice, nothing to do with fairness, nothing to do with honour. This is what bullies do, this is what thugs do, this is what criminals do, mafias do, governments, unfortunately, which obviously are a type of mafia these days, if they weren't always. So then you get the police in, and once they can smell a juicy case for them, oh, we've got something here. And once they start spending money on it, and once they start getting a bigger budget for it as it begins to ramp up, and Hughes and the person who's above him and all the others in the team are all getting excited, and they want to win from the get-go. They want to win from the get-go. And when you look at the Operation Hummingbird video, there's all this disingenuous crap that comes out of Hughes' mouth about saying we had to show that right from the beginning we were open-minded. It could be anything or anybody, anything or anybody. Anything meaning not a crime at all. But absolute rubbish. Absolute bald-faced lies. They never had anyone else in their frame, in their targets. They just had to give the impression as though they're looking at other things. But actually, there was nothing they could show to... Hughes saying, we was hoping it was a bad bug in the water would suggest that was a line of inquiry and a line of investigation, but it wasn't. They never did anything to do with the water or the hospital wastewater. What did they do? What investigations did they do with regard to the pathogens? Did they ask for the unit to be tested in different ways to see what pathogens are there? Of course they didn't. So it's a lie, isn't it, to say we were hoping that might be one of the things that Evans comes up for us. I mean, Evans was sent a bunch of notes, nothing to do with looking at how clean that ward was or what pathogens were potentially there, and the relationship with the dripping pipes in the crawl space and the overflowing and backfilling at the sinks and toilets. Hospital wastewater and sewage over the floor. Can't ever get rid of these pathogens. Incredibly high acuity, very vulnerable babies. Nurses coming in full of cold, I'm full of cold, sneeze, hands straight into the incubator of a 27-week baby who's already had an infection and a bleed on the brain and been in a level 3 unit. Unfortunately, he's been sent back to the COCH, unfortunately and sadly, to die there. Doctors saying that. Doctors... Anyway, I won't go too much into that, but it's just this absolute need to win. And when that hummingbird, it's a ridiculous name for something, but somebody did a good blog on Substack about that, about the symbology of hummingbirds. I'll try and find that and put that as a link when they're talking about this miscarriage of justice. But they look at the symbology of hummingbirds as well. But it might just be happenstance they chose that. But it's a fantastic article in and of itself. So once it starts building up into the millions of pounds the Cheshire Police are investigating in there, they've invested. They've invested, and they've got Evans there. Evans himself, a very bitter, disappointed, embittered person, wanted to be some kind of politician, didn't make it, had a few low-level jobs on a council, wanted to go higher, nobody wanted to know. Very embittered person about NHS management. Saw the scenario here as a clash between the doctors and the management. Must have been stuff in his past to do with that it triggered him. There's an extra reason to get involved here. Plus, I absolutely believe he had prior knowledge of all the cases that were necessary to be called suspicious and unexpected and unexplained, leading to his bogus assessment of them being intended harm. I believe he had prior connection with those consultants. Can't prove it yet, but I think there's going to be stuff coming out of the woodwork, I hope. There's people out there that know. Obviously the people concerned know, but maybe there's others that can let things slip. You know, we've got the Welsh Paediatric Society spring meeting happening in, I can't think of the exact date off the top of my head, I think in April 2017, while the gossip's going crazy about the police being involved, but it hasn't actually been reported that the police are involved. And we've got Gibbs and Jayaram. We've got Gibbs and Jayaram at that Welsh Paediatric Society spring meeting, giving presentations, and we've always just wondered whether Evans was there, and had a little chat in the bar afterwards or wherever. It was in a hotel, kind of posh hotel in Chester. I remember ringing up the hotel, trying to get the sort of like the guest lists and the people who might have signed in, but they said it was, I did that in a previous video 8-9 months ago, that the people in the hotel said no, that's all gone. We've got all completely new systems now, electronic systems, and can't track that back. So back to this theme of win at all costs. Once Evans he can see himself becoming a bit of a star over this. So he's got investment. He's got investment about the idea of the battle between consultants and management, which really bothers him, really narks him. He keeps talking about it in post-trial interviews, how shabby he thinks they are, how bad, how awful he thinks the management are. So he's got skin in the game, he's got motivation, he wants to win, he wants to make a name for himself. It was him that he injected himself into this. He emailed the NCA, National Crime Agency, saying, it sounds like this is just my kind of case, just my kind of case. Another thing from a video from long ago is that really want to know the date and time of that email. I really want to make sure that email that he sends in which I've heard there's some issues up in Chester. Who's he heard it from? Well, he says he's read it in the paper that the police are involved, and that's why he adds it into this email. I've heard there's this case, if you were looking for somebody, I'm ready, I'm your man, I'm your man. But did he send that email before the first reporting of police involvement in Chester at the Countess of Chester Hospital? Not sure. I tried to get the date of the email that was sent from the NCA, but unfortunately the NCA, the National Crime Agency, because of the nature of who they are, they say they fall out of, they don't have to adhere to the freedom of information requests that other organisations do. They're saying as a security issue, they wouldn't tell me the date and time of that email that Evans sent to them. I had hoped, obviously, one would hope that the defence checked this detail, because if obviously if the email was sent before it was first reported, then Evans had it. He's been told by someone else, hasn't he? What else has he been told by someone else? Has he been told the children that the babies he's got to pick and say, these are the suspicious cases, and just as importantly, push the ones that that he's deeming expected and explainable all to the side. He can't make a mistake one way or the other. He can't say that he can't get it wrong once. Later on in the Rachel Aviv article, to do with so-called insulin cases, we'll see that he kind of looks like he kind of did get it wrong a bit and had to be kind of told, no, we don't touch that one. We don't touch that one, Dewey. We don't touch that one because it kind of skews everything else. Because if Lucy's not on duty and we're saying something's happened when Lucy's not on duty, don't do that. Don't do that. We need our perfect graph with all the X's, and we don't want anything messing that up. Back to this absolute need to win at all costs. I believe an operation like Hummingbird, it's a moral vacuum. There's no morality there. There's no impartial seeking after the truth or justice. Once they've started investing lots of money into it, their whole goal is to make it all fit and get the person. I was going to say get their man, but in this case, get their woman. Get the person. They're seeing Lucy Letby as the quarry, and they're going to get the quarry. They're going to catch the quarry at all costs. Ignore everything. Ignore everything else that could possibly work against the idea that Lucy Letby is a serial killer. Ignore it deliberately, explicitly, push away and ignore everything else, because you've got to win at all costs. And then it leads on to the CPS doing the same once they're involved. Leads on to a prosecuting barrister. They're all there to win. It doesn't matter what's happened in truth. It doesn't matter that there are no crimes. It doesn't matter that Lucy Letby she's not innocent of the crimes. There were no crimes. She's just innocent per se. Nobody's guilty of these crimes, but they are guilty of a lot of medical negligence, certain people. And there will be the doctors. And there will be elements of responsibility with the trust as a whole, who are operating that very dangerous unit for all that time, with all those deaths, while being warned about it by Alison Timmis and probably others. Alison Timmis, she gave them the warning. It's a matter of record. So the will to win at all costs is obviously enshrined in this oppositional, can't think of the word now, the way our legal system works. It's a fight, really. I mean, you know, does it matter to that prosecuting barrister whether he thinks, if he goes home and thinks, oh, I'm not really sure whether she's innocent or guilty? My job was to win. My job's to win. The police's job, once they've invested all that money, once they've started spaffing 10, 15 million up the wall, do you think they're going to roll back and say, do you think if there was someone in Operation Hummingbird after the first arrest in 2018, where they've already spent a few million, God, probably quite a few million to get to that point, right? All the hours, you know, God knows what they were doing. All the overtime you can imagine. Getting a whole separate house built for the inquiry, it's just insane, you know. And can you imagine somebody, if there had been somebody with any kind of honour on that team, which obviously it's an honour-free zone, you know, who kind of says, well, after that first interview with Lucy Letby in 2018, the first arrest, she doesn't. I don't think she's done this. There's got to be something else here. What about all the other deaths that happened? We know there were, well, they might have said 17, but I think there's more. But there were 17 deaths. Are we sure about this Evans guy? Are we sure about this Evans guy? Do you think they would have lasted in Operation Hummingbird had they? They would have been kicked out. No, you've got to all be on message. You've got to win at all costs. No, this is going to make our careers. That's the way they're thinking. This is how disgusting it is. The culture of it is nothing to do with justice or truth or honour. It's about winning at all costs. Doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. Doesn't matter whether somebody's done something or hasn't done it. You've got to win. Same as the prosecuting barrister. Adversarial, that was the word I was trying to think of. Adversarial system. You just got to be an adversary and win. Smash the other person, smash their defence. Doesn't matter whether it's true or right or honourable. It's just hideous. Just get the jury to just convince the jury by any underhand trick that you can possibly think of. Overwhelm the jury. Let the system overwhelm the jury, and then the terrible weaknesses of the defence, in which there was the agreed fact of deliberate insulin poisoning. Also, an agreed fact of deliberate insulin poisoning, which is the death knell, which is the death sentence for Lucy Letby, because once you've agreed that, there's nobody else in court to look at. And they've got all these other attempted murders charges and murder charges by other means, trauma or air embolus or overfeeding. And are the jury going to say, well, yeah, it was Lucy Letby may have done those, but she didn't do the insulin ones. That could have been someone else. No. It's calculated to overwhelm. It's calculated to make it impossible for Lucy to have a chance in that trial. And perhaps that's the system now. And the system as a whole, this idea of the absolute need to win without any conscience whatsoever, is the system as a whole coagulates then. Once they've quote unquote won, then they need to win the winning. They need to carry on winning. They mustn't have that overturned, because that would be all their winnings lost. And the ramification to that, to everyone involved, will be huge, because it will happen. But let's hope it happens sooner rather than later. But the establishment, as it were, all these institutions coming together, they just don't want it to happen. And so that's the kind of grand arc over it of the need to win at all costs. Because what it would do to the idea of the judiciary, to the idea of experts in trials, because you had like 8-9 experts on the prosecution, side, spending huge amounts of money, tens of millions overall with all the police costs, tens of millions, and you've got it all wrong, and it's all based on nothing, or it's all based on a complete construction. When yes, there were deaths, and there is responsibility and accountability to be had, but it's not Lucy Letby. All these professionals and experts have all got it all wrong. Can you imagine the reverberations there are going to be? Because it will happen. But at the moment, and with this inquiry, there's a great need for the system as a whole to consolidate, try to, with this trial coming up in June, add another few nails into the coffin. But the cries are going to get louder, and they're going to become more intense, and there's going to be more of them, the cries that this isn't right. This isn't right for so many reasons. And the establishment will coagulate and pull together and say, no, they just want to keep winning. They just want to keep winning. Doesn't matter whether it's fair, right, just, honourable, true. Doesn't matter. Win at all costs. And that's the complete lack of morality that allows this to grow from a kind of in-house bullying situation to scapegoat someone because a place is in chaos and the doctors are making errors left, right and centre, and they're looking for somebody to blame. And had Lucy gone or been pushed away, never would have got to an investigation or a trial, and they would have paid out a few £1 million for medical negligence cases, or quite a few £1 million that Then they were ready to sort of start going, those cases were, before the just before the police were involved. I was coming up to 55 minutes. So yeah, sort of brought in a lot of different elements there. I think that, and this is something like these articles, and Rachel Aviv article is just that it keeps pulling in its wake all these issues. It keeps pulling the whole structure and rotten fabric of the construction of this frame job against an innocent person. And you can see how rotten it is. It's like dragging like this, all this rotten and hideous material behind you that's all full of holes and contradictions and rips and tears and mould. It's not going to stand this. It's not going to work for them in the long run. But at present, they're full on will to win mode still, or to keep the win. Don't lose the win, to keep it in place. But there will be a volte-face, a turn. There will be a turning to its opposite, and the opposite in this case is justice, and the opposite is truth. Thank you.